Good morning. How's it going? Hello. Well, hi, everyone. I hope you had a fun evening last night. I saw a lot of folks brought the energy. So my name is Emily Brey, and I serve as State Director with Americans for Prosperity, the Commonwealth's largest grassroots organization. And when I say grassroots, I mean the people in this room who will be attending today, throughout the conference. We have a real opportunity of changing the landscape in Harrisburg. What we see right now is a lot of tax and spend policy, spending more than we can afford, quite frankly. And so Americans for Prosperity engages in politics to support good policy. And we're going to talk a little bit about what good policy means. But I want to introduce my friend and colleague, Jeff Glendening, who is the Director of Political Development. Let's give it up for Jeff.
Good morning.
So Jeff, tell us a little bit about yourself and how did you get into this role?
Sure. So, Jeff Glendening, lead the candidate recruitment wing of Americans for Prosperity. Been recruiting candidates for about almost 30 years now. And really, we've done it. We started doing it at Americans for Prosperity because we got kind of tired of selling other people's products of candidates. And so that's really why we did that. And just excited to, I've been in Pennsylvania several times working with you and your team and catching your vision for what the Commonwealth can be. And that gives you hope for what we can do. And that's really why we recruit candidates, is placing those people into positions where they can make a change.
I love it. And we sorely need change here in the Commonwealth. Am I right? Yes, exactly. We don't have to just, accept more taxation, more big government policies. We can be competitive. We can, remove the regulatory barriers that are holding our businesses back. But we can only do that through electing good policy champions and restoring a policy majority in the State House, protecting a policy majority in the State Senate. So let's talk about what makes a good candidate.
Oh, that's a really good question. One of the things we really want to look for are people that aren't, they're not necessarily in it for themselves. They're trying to make policy changes. Like you said a minute ago, we do this, we're a policy organization. We do politics because of policy, and we do policy because of people. The things that you all work on, the things that we do affects people's lives. And that's really why we get engaged in politics. So we're looking for people who want to make a difference. They want to make a change. It's not about themselves. They're not, trying to climb ladders up to the next level. They actually want to make an impact of what they're doing. They may have aspirations to do more, and that's perfectly fine. But we're really looking for people who want to do it for the right reasons.
So what does that look like? Is there an example of a bad candidate?
We actually have one of those.
Oh.
A video. Not with us. Don't worry. No. You want to show that video? This is one of you might think I'm an incredibly sick person after watching this. This is one of my favorite videos. This will motivate you to go find the right people. If we could play that video. I think he's working on it. In the meantime, Emily's going to sing and dance. It's going to be really cool.
It is too early for that. No one wants that. Actually, at no time of day does anyone want that.
If not, we'll just start pulling people out of the audience. Here we go.
Ladies and gentlemen of the Starr County Republican Party Executive Committee, good evening. And thank you not only for your attendance, but for allowing me the opportunity to speak. My name is Phil Davison, and I am seeking our party's nomination for the position of Starr County Treasurer on November 10th, November of 2010, excuse me. In terms of my background, I am from the village of Minerva, where I am serving my 13th year of elected service as a Minerva Council member. In terms of education, I have a bachelor's degree in sociology, a bachelor's degree in history, a master's degree in public administration. and a master's degree in communication. In terms of elections across Starr County, I have represented our party twice on the county ballot in both the primary and the general elections. When I ran for Starr County Clerk of Courts in 1996 and Starr County Commissioner in 2000, and I will not apologize for my tone tonight. I have been a Republican in times good, and I have been a Republican in times bad. Albert Einstein issued one of my most favorite quotes in the history of the spoken word, and it is as follows. In the middle of opportunity, in the middle of difficulty lies opportunity. I'm going to repeat that so I have clarity tonight. In the middle of difficulty lies opportunity. This is the opportunity we've been waiting for. The Starr County Treasurer's Office is a mess. It is in dire need of structure and guidance. And now is the time to seize this opportunity with an aggressive campaign and an even more aggressive campaigner. If nominated tonight, I promise each and every person in this room, I will hit the ground running, come out swinging, and end up winning. Let's send a message tonight to the people of Starr County and to the people of the Starr County Democratic Party. We're tired of business as usual. Drastic times require what? Drastic measures, yes! Who said that? Thank you! Drastic times require drastic measures. We will not tolerate incompetence and irresponsibility any longer. Now is the time to snap the Democratic stranglehold on the Treasurer's Office in two. And I harken back to what my friend Alex just said. He ran against the Treasurer in 1996. It was a problem then, it's a problem now. Infestation. Politics is not touch football. Politics is winner take all. It always has been, and it always will be. If nominated tonight, I want to develop and expand my campaign for what I believe is the greatest strength of the Starr County Republican Party, and that is its people.
All right.
I believe in the axiom.
Thank you. That was somebody that Emily recruited a few years ago.
Stop it.
And she's really excited about. We actually have that person here tonight, or this morning. No, we don't. Okay, never mind. Yeah, no, but somebody like that, somebody who is incredibly passionate, but doesn't know how to communicate. Even though he has a master's degree in communication. I don't know where he went to school, but they should probably have whatever certifications that they own, yanked immediately. Clearly, they failed a master's degree in communication. But anyway, so a couple other things real quick on your question. What we're looking for one of the big things that we see sometimes are also like things at home, family life. If you see a spouse that really needs to be supportive, that's a critical piece of that as well. If the person is going home, the candidate's going home, and they're just, their spouse isn't a part of this, it's not going to go well. Or almost to the extreme on the flip side too, if they're using it because they've always wanted to be something. We've seen that be a big red flag as well, where they're just using whatever office that their spouse is running for to be somebody, to get invited to the super cool dinner parties or whatever. It's kind of that can be really a drain on the candidate as well. Looking for somebody that's been a leader in their community, looking for somebody who not necessarily political experience, but they're almost being drafted into running where other people want them to run. I cannot imagine that there was, and I'm pointing at you, But I can't imagine that there was anybody serious that really went to that guy and said, you really need to run for office. I would hope not. If they do, they should probably stop doing this, whatever it is they're
They
doing.
probably need Jeff Glendening's advice and
Emily.
wisdom.
No, they need you. But there's just a lot of things, yeah.
So we have a room full of incredible potential candidates. And throughout the day today, throughout the conference, we're going to talk with community leaders who have a great circle of influence that with the right training really could step up and be leaders under the dome in Harrisburg. Can you talk about what it would be like, or how to deal with rejection? If you have a great candidate that you want to run, you sit down with them, you've almost gotten them to a yes, and then they back out. Talk us through that.
I've never had that happen before.
Never, ever.
Just kidding.
Okay.
No, and it happens a lot. You're going to get more no's than you do yeses, frankly. It's like any sales job. It's not just like any sales job, but it's like any sales job, and there's going to be a lot of rejection. And that's okay. Learn from it and tap into that person's network. There's a reason why you went to that person and asked them to run in the first place. So, one of the things I'll usually say is, hey, Bob, I know you just said you weren't going to run, but if you're not going to run, then you have to help me find somebody. And if you don't help me find somebody, then I'm going to forge your name in. And I've never actually done that before, but I've threatened it 100 times. But they're really good about it. They're really good to help. But
That's great. Now, this whole process could seem overwhelming. Where do you even start in identifying these candidates?
Sure. One of the big things is starting early, but also understanding you don't have to do this yourself. We've seen that the states that we see around the country that do recruitment really well, it's not one organization or one person that really owns it. A lot of times there's somebody who thinks they're the king or queen maker of everyone in that state. Be careful of those people. But it's a group effort. We are, as conservatives, we were just talking about this backstage about something completely different, but as conservatives, we're very independent by nature. We like to do things on our own. We don't want somebody else necessarily telling us what to do or how to do it. So it can be difficult to get all the different factions of conservatism, whatever that umbrella is now, seems to be changing by the moment, but whatever that looks like, getting them into a room and actually saying, hey, this is who I like in this district. We don't have anybody here. Pro Second Amendment group, you've got a great activist group in this area. You should take that. You take that area. And understanding we're not always going to be on the same page at the same time. We've got some states that do it really well. New Hampshire, been to their recruitment meeting a few times. They'll have 20, 30 people around the table, and they're legislators. They're leaders of different groups from around the state, from social conservative groups to fiscal conservative groups to gun groups, whatever. And they realize that this is a team effort, that they can't do it on their own. Quick side note: New Hampshire, they have 400 members of their state house. It's different than any other state, and you may be represented. If we've lived in New Hampshire, you may have 4 people actually representing you in New Hampshire in the state house, and I might have 2, and you might have 7. It's the strangest thing. But the groups get together and they do really well. Kansas, where I'm from, that's something that we've done for the last 20 years. There's about 10 of us that get together, but we start doing it right after the election day. So this is a 2-year process. It's a 2-year process. West Virginia is another state. I'll turn it back over to you, but 3 or 4 years ago, we went to a meeting there, and there were a lot of people in the room. The Senate president was there. I think the state treasurer was there. There was a whole bunch of folks, but there were no assignments given. There were talk a lot about, hey, we can't find somebody in the 20th House district. And we walked out of there, and I was talking to our state director. I was like, probably need to start smaller. We get the people that will actually do the work. There are a lot of people in our movement, unfortunately, that talk a lot and don't actually get out and do things. And so, they kind of restructured what they were doing. They came in with a leader, and they were, making assignments the next time. Now they're West Virginia has become a kind of a recruitment machine there. It's been really good. So
that's really cool. And you hit on the timeline for this. When should we be starting to recruit candidates? I mean, we have a midterm election coming up in, goodness, however many months.
Yeah.
Is it too, well, yes, it's too late. Candidates are on the ballot. So when should we start for 2028?
Today would be amazing. In all seriousness, it's that thinking through, kind of that always be recruiting mentality. And I know that's not what everybody in here, you don't go to bed at night thinking about that like I do. And I get that. But having that mentality, boy, you see somebody that's speaking in a local meeting, at a school board meeting, they're very articulate. They clearly, they know people in the room, they do really well. Make notes of that. Call somebody like Emily and say, hey, I think we may have somebody here for down the road. And thinking through who's going to follow, the current person. You might have a really good person in a seat, but they're not going to be there forever. Thinking through what are the next steps? Who do we need to go find the next time? But really that mentality of always looking for talent, always looking for people who can lead in the state.
So let's say a candidate says yes. We've got a great candidate in a seat where we know we have a very realistic opportunity to flip to get someone that's more policy aligned with what we view a better Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. How can we set expectations for what this will look like as far as their time, their effort, their resources?
That's a really good question. I've seen other groups before, some national groups that have gotten some bad reputations for recruiting candidates because they weren't horribly honest with the candidates. They were not honest about what it takes to run. If you've run for office, you know that it is an all-encompassing thing.
Just real quick, before, not to cut you off, raise your hand if you've run for office before. Oh, this is great. Okay, so we have some candidates.
Yeah.
Can certainly speak to this as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as a candidate, would you want to be lied to about, oh, this isn't going to take very much of your time, and boy, once you get elected, it's going to be easy, don't worry about it. But you hear that a lot. And we're going to come in with millions of dollars to support you, too. Don't worry about that. And then the groups don't come in, and they don't come and provide support. If you're recruiting for a job, no matter what it is, but specifically an office, know what it is. Know what it is. So know what it is, not just what they're going to be doing, but, how long? What are you expected? When are you expected to be in Harrisburg? Is it Monday through Friday? Am I going to be there on Saturdays? It's a Tuesday through Thursday? What is it? And it's interesting. Every state's different on how they do their state legislature. If you're talking to somebody that's running for Congress, know that a lot of times it's a, Tuesday morning through Thursday night thing. Sometimes it goes longer, though. You need to know what it is. You need to be very honest about what it takes, because the last thing that you want is them to get there or start running and be like, forget it, I'm not doing this anymore. This is awful. I'll tell you one occupation that we see sometimes they get very disappointed in it once they get elected are small business owners. And I love getting small business owners into running for office. They're amazingly wonderful people. They're natural leaders. And they're also natural at making decisions. They've made a lot of decisions. And they get to the legislature, and then all of a sudden they realize, oh, I'm one of 200 people. And I'm not the one just making the decision. Because for the last 30 years, and I've been running my business, I've been the one throat to choke. I'm the one person that's going to be making this. It's up to me whether to win or lose on this. And now that they're a part of a process of a whole lot more people, it can be very disappointing for them. And so you've got to I love that question, because you really do have to set them up for reasonable expectations of what this is going to be like. So
that's a great point. And, to really kind of elaborate on that, is there a certain type of candidate, like occupation, that you found works really well as far as candidate recruitment?
I almost can think of things that don't work really well. And I'll start there. We'll go into the other two. But people that have been working alone for a long time, sometimes really susceptible to lobbyists. And I know you lobby, but you're honest.
We lobby on behalf of the taxpayer.
That's right. That's right. Right. It's the best lobbying gig in the world. But you get some people, and I know this is going to shock you that a lobbyist would do this, but say you've been working by yourself, you're an insurance, and I'm not talking about insurance agents, but say you were working by yourself for the last 30 years. How many people walk up to that person and say, "And you're doing a really good job"? Probably not very many. All of a sudden they go to Harrisburg and they get slapped on the back and be like, "Man, we have not had a good legislator like you in years. I can't remember anybody like you." And then they become chairman and it's, "Whew, you were the best chairman ever." And kind of watching for people who may not, maybe they've been able to work by themselves and they're just fine with taking praise, but you need to watch out for people who are maybe been in roles where they necessarily haven't had that experience before, and now all of a sudden people are walking up to them and just telling them they're the greatest thing since sliced bread. But I'll go back to the pros. Small business, I love business owners because they do know how to make decisions, and they also know how when the going gets tough, and the lobbyists do come in, they're okay with saying no. They're okay with not giving them everything that they want, and I think that is a trait that we really look for. That character of they know why they're in Harrisburg, or they know why they're in Washington D.C. They have a mission. And going back to what we talked about a minute ago, politics because of policy and politics because of people, they know why they're there. And it's not about their next move. So
at Americans for Prosperity, before we engage in a race, because we are driven by policies and not politics, we look at two criteria. The first is the candidate aligned with us? Now, we believe in free markets. We believe in removing governmental barriers to opportunity. So each of us in this room and across the Commonwealth can live our version of the American dream. We look for candidates that are aligned with that vision, despite what the letter next to their name might read on the ballot. We also look at criteria too. Can we make a difference in the race? We know that there are great candidates that run in certain districts, but the landscape just might not be where we need it to be. Mm-hmm. And so that's the two criteria that we view races through that lens. Now, we want to be proud of the candidates we back, and I'm very proud of many of the candidates that we have supported, many of who you will see throughout this conference. Can you talk about, situations where we've made endorsements in the past, we've recruited candidates, and, perhaps they may have gone in a different direction policy-wise? Yeah,
sometimes that happens. People will fail you. It's, anytime you're working with people, understanding that people are messy. We're not. We're perfectly great and never make mistakes. But, she is. But people are always going to fail you. But I think one of the most disappointing things is to see somebody to go to Washington and all of a sudden forget where they came from. They forget the people that they're representing. They forget the principles that they were running on. And that happens. It happens somewhat frequently. It can't, as somebody who recruits candidates, it's something to make note of, to learn from, not stop, but just understanding that they're going to make mistakes, and there's sometimes people just turn. Sometimes people, they go to Washington or go to Harrisburg and they become different people. And it's really sad to see, but it certainly happens. So,
I love that people will fail you, the policies won't.
Yes.
And that is why we do what we do at Americans for Prosperity and the Libre Initiative and Concerned Veterans for America, our sister organizations, because we're fighting for a better Pennsylvania where free markets are the bias. And we have a lot of work to do in Harrisburg. We need people who are going to stand with us. Ultimately, candidates we recruit, if they take a different direction, we're not changing our policy stances because we know that we need to stay laser focused at what good looks like.
Yeah, and we're not afraid if we may have recruited somebody, if they go astray, people sometimes do, we're not afraid to then say, you know what, we need to go find somebody else. It's a never-ending process, but we have to, because if you are grounded in your beliefs, you're grounded in your principles, it's not about the person that's casting the ballot. It's about the people, or the people they're working for. So.
And Jeff, you do this across the country. Can you share where maybe this has happened in a different state and what that process looked like?
Yes. There have definitely been times. I mean, just in Kansas, there have been people who have gotten into leadership at times that we actually really encouraged. In one case, not the current Senate president in Kansas, but a past one, who went astray and started voting for tax increases that certainly were not needed. And she was shocked when we started sending mail pieces out in her district. And, encouraging folks to call her and say, hey, why are you raising taxes? I've got a picture. She actually had one of the business leaders in Kansas come to her office, who is a known donor of Americans for Prosperity, and was waving this postcard of, you got to fire Jeff. He's sending out these postcards in my district. And they're like, sorry you made the wrong decision, but you made the wrong decision. At the end of the day, it's not about our decision to support them or not. They actually, we don't buy people, right? We're not buying candidates. We're investing in people who are aligned with us. And sometimes they don't quite understand that. And it's not necessarily about them. It's about the principles that they campaigned on. It's about the principles that they talked about when they were running for office. And sometimes they really struggle with that, and that's okay. You're not there to make friends. I will tell you, when I was sending those out, there was not I was the state director in Kansas at the time. There was not another lobbyist that would stand next to me in the Capitol. Not a one. It was really kind of funny, because they were like, that guy's going after the Senate president. He's not real smart. He's, but it was kind of funny, but you have to stand on principle.
Excellent. So I know we're going to open it up to questions in a little bit, so I hope there's questions. Get your coffee so we have some
energy. If not,
energy.
we'll just call on you.
Yeah, exactly. Socratic method here. But we want this to be energetic, participatory. But before we open it up to questions, just a few more just thoughts for you. Have you ever had to talk a candidate out of running?
Yes.
I feel like there's a good story to this one.
Yeah, it's happened a few times. States that are redistricting, and I know we're kind of in the middle of that redistricting cycle right now. But actually, really good question, because it's something to even be thinking about as you're scouting people, and you see, Betty Jo, who just made a really good speech at a school board meeting, making note. Maybe she doesn't live in a district right now where you need somebody, but after they go in and start redrawing lines, maybe that's a perfect place for her. We had one of the states that we were working in. They had the courts actually rejected what the legislature had passed, the governor had signed. They decided to draw their own maps, and they gave us the maps at noon on Friday and the filing deadline was noon on the next Monday. So we had, over the weekend, we kind of had to go through. There were a number of candidates that we had recruited to run in the districts we thought were going to become law that got put together. And I'm sure the courts didn't do that intentionally. I'm sure they would never, ever do that. But we had to go to some of them and be like, look, you can't run this time. We had to, pick the stronger person, and sometimes they did, sometimes they didn't. Sometimes they pulled their name out. But there are times, too, had a guy in Texas, well known around the Dallas area, very connected to, all the money families in Texas, which is not insignificant, and had a business with his name on it. And, we talked, one of the things you were talking about, the criteria, is we want to be proud of the people that we put the AFP name behind, AFP Action name behind. And there were some things that came out in the social media that, we go back and we look at their records, and this guy had said some things that were, they're just not acceptable. And, had to go to him and say, bud, you can't run. This is, or if you do, I can't tell you what to do, but if you do, don't expect us to come riding in. Had another one, Barack Obama, actually his cousin was a doctor and was a Republican.
Huh.
And he wanted to run against a Republican sitting senator. And good guy. We started noticing some things about this was about him, some of those character traits that we talked about at the beginning. And he was convinced that we were going to come in to help him. And, found out that he was going to be announcing the next day. And I called him up and I was like, bud, listen, you need to understand, don't get in this race thinking we're going to, white in on white horses and saving your butt, because we're not. And he was not happy. He was like, no, you're going to get in. I know you will. And okay. He had the world planned out for him, that he thought Sean Hannity was going to come in and do he'd been on the Hannity show several times, Fox News, several times a week, because he was Barack Obama's Republican doctor cousin. And he just thought the world was his oyster, and we were it was interesting.
So it probably lacked the campaign infrastructure to be successful.
Yeah. And lacked humility. And
So talk a little bit about civility. This is an important topic when we thinking about Americans for Prosperity, putting our name and our grassroots weight behind a candidate. Because when AFP engages in races, we don't just do paper endorsements, we do mail, digital, the full suite. But most importantly, we bring the grassroots. And that means door-to-door messaging, which we know moves the needle in really close races. So before we make that incredible investment into a potential candidate, we look at civility. And can you speak to what that looks like in today's, society?
Sure, you nailed it. We want to be proud of the people that if we're asking you to go knock on doors for them. We want you to know that this person has been vetted, and again, not that they may not fail us down the road, but there's somebody that you can go to the door and you can be proud of, that you're knocking on that door to asking whatever voter you're talking to vote for them. And that's really important to us, whether it's our grassroots, whether it's our donors, what's our employees, whatever it is. We want people to be proud of the people that we're voting for. So we take a really hard look into backgrounds. Sometimes you can find some interesting things that have been filed illegally against some folks, and we'll have that conversation with them. If it was 20 years ago, okay, what happened? Talk me through this. Just because there's something in their background, or just because they haven't been completely clean on social media, we'll have that conversation with them. But if there is a trend, this is how this person's going to act, then we're not going to put our name behind them. We're not going to continue to ask people to go vote for them. Quite frankly, people with problems like that are not going to be champions. What we're looking for people that can, pick up our agenda, pick up your agenda, the things that you want to work on, and be able to go into the legislature and to lead on an issue. And if you're somebody that all you do is throw bombs all day, you're not a leader. You don't have a vision for, where we could go. You're just people that are stuck in the past. People are stuck in things that somebody wronged them years ago or something, and they want to go after them. And you see this stuff play out on social media. If you're thinking about running for office at some point, please watch. If you have a thought, it doesn't need to be tweeted all the time. You don't have to put everything on Facebook. Really think through what you're doing, because we're looking for champions. We're looking for leaders. We're looking for people, again, who can take our agenda, a piece of it, and say, follow me, I'm going to go get this done, and can get people to do it. Also, voters. Not everybody is a conservative Republican voter. Most districts require some, there's those swing voters in the middle. Sometimes there's smaller, pieces of that pie to get to 50%. But if somebody that's just bombastic all the time, they're really not that excited about voting for them. So they want somebody that can project some hope, right? They don't want somebody that's just throwing bombs all the time. I think this is a big problem with the Democrat Party right now, is that all they're doing is starting fights, left and right. All they're doing is it's the No Kings rallies and whatever. I'm seriously, you're watching those rallies. Are they projecting any hope? No. I haven't seen anything like that. It's all about what conservatives are doing wrong, and that's not giving voters hope. We're looking for people who can have a vision for the future, have a vision for a better Pennsylvania, a better America. That's what we're looking for.
I love that, and it reminds me of former Senator Ben Sass's most recent interview, where he shared, in ideology, I am a fiscal conservative. In disposition, I'm a moderate. And I loved the way that was articulated, because we can have these great conservative beliefs, but it's about how we message it to swing voters. In 2024, Americans for Prosperity Action, our 527 PAC, engaged in a full court press to elect now Senator Dave McCormick, knocking 1.1 million doors. And yes, thank you. Let's give that a round of applause. I'm looking at my team right here who led that charge, which is just tremendous. But we weren't knocking doors of folks that would be spending time at the Pennsylvania Leadership Conference, because we know where we stand. We know our conservative beliefs. We're talking with folks who may or may not show up to vote on Tuesday, November 5th, who may or may not know who's even running. Those are the hearts and minds that we need to change. And when we're thinking about candidates to run and lead on that messaging, we need people who are fiscally conservative in ideology and moderate in disposition. Loved the way that was articulated.
Not in their beliefs.
Not moderate in their beliefs.
Yeah, it's not about that, but it's not, it is giving somewhat of a vision for hope. It's being willing to make that change. You're absolutely right. You're never going to be able to reach those swing voters and actually win. You can't govern if you don't win. And you're not changing your beliefs, you're not changing your principles, but sometimes we have to soften the way that we talk about it for some folks.
So before we open it up to questions, I would have put you on the spot, Jeff.
Oh, yeah.
What has been your favorite candidate recruitment experience?
Oh, that's a really good question. There's a lot of fun ones, but we were actually talking about it for a different reason a minute ago backstage. The Attorney General in Nebraska, of all places, just a great guy. One of the things I loved about him, very conservative. He actually fits exactly what you're talking about with Ben Sass. Incredibly conservative guy. Great guy, but one thing that he does, he brings in talent, and a lot of times young talent into his office. He did this in his private legal practice as well. But he's doing this right now in the Attorney General's office. They're bringing talent in to train them up, giving them experience, and then sending them out. Going and doing other jobs. He's an incredible leader. He has, talk about a guy that I hope continues to run for higher office, and I think he will. But a guy who has a really strong vision, not just for Nebraska, but for the country, and building up the Army. He knows that it takes a lot more than just a few people to do the job. You got to train them up and send them out and go do great things. And I love his vision. So.
Well, we are going to continue to recruit strong candidates here in the Commonwealth and make sure that we're casting a better vision for Harrisburg. One where there's no months-long budget impasses, infighting, cap and tax policies that are bringing up our energy bills. This is what we're fighting against. Our work is certainly cut out for us, and we have our marching orders. But with the right people in the right place, and with your help, we'll identify candidates that can run and win. So I want to open it up for any questions for Jeff and make a...
Or Emily.
I'll
take all the hard
certainly take
ones.
questions. Thanks. Send the softballs to him. But I want to just shout out my team who's right at this front table. Meet with them, make sure you're connected, because we can help provide resources if a candidate's thinking about running, particularly one that's really strong in a district where we can make a difference. We would love to help. Just send a note of encouragement if this is a candidate that believes like we do, that removing governmental barriers to opportunity is what's highest priority in Harrisburg. So with that, I just want to open this up to any questions. Yes?
This one's for Jeff. Jeff, you see this a lot of times. A candidate runs, they go on school board, supervisor, borough council, they got a great job, they got involved because of an issue. Mm-hmm. But there's an opportunity for a higher office, whether it's state representative, state senator, pick your choice. How do you convince that person, even though they're safe with a really good job and they're doing it, crushing it on school board, how do you convince them to run for the higher office and leave their comfort zone on their job and what they're doing today?
This is a great question for Jeff, but I just want to repeat for those who may not have been able to hear. The question is, if we have a great candidate who's already in a safe local elected official position, how do we encourage them to take the next step? And this kind of speaks to building a bench as well.
Yeah, it does. We always want to be looking, down the road. I mentioned that earlier. Local government can be a really good proving ground for a higher office, in a good way and also a bad way. There are many. We've seen it way too many times. People that are very strongly principled go in and they want to reduce the size and the scope of local government. It's amazing how many times people go into local government, they conservative, and they come out pretty liberal. So it's something to watch out for, just because they were great at one point. But specifically to your question, how to convincing them, finding out what's that issue that they really care about. Maybe it's education, or maybe it's you pick your state issue, whatever it is, and then just helping them realize that they can make such even a bigger impact on that issue if they're in Harrisburg or if they're in Washington or whatever it is. And just that if you really want to make a change, if you're really committed to this, we need you to run. Are you willing to do that? And if they say no, again, what I said at the very beginning of, okay, then you say no, then you got to help me find somebody. But just helping them connect the dots to the importance of serving in Harrisburg or serving in Washington, D.C., and the impact that can make. The number of lives that you affect continues to go up as you move up in office. So,
great question. Any other questions? Yes?
So in terms of where you actually go to source candidates, especially first timers, do you go to county party committee meetings or other local municipal stuff? Where do you find these folks?
It's a great question. What you asked was, where do we go to find candidates? You brought up county party meetings. There are some great county parties across the country. And there are also some county parties that are just a bunch of people that, 10 people that sit in the room. It's been the same 10 people for the last 30 years, and they just talk to each other and they do anything. So it's kind of figuring out, what that is. But, talking to community leaders, talking to, we call them centers of gravity. Who is that one person that knows everybody in that community? There's always somebody. They may not be the best person to run, but they're going to be able to point you in the right direction of, who should it be that actually puts the name on the list. If you're talking about Congress, state legislature is a great place to go look for people. And there are a lot of state legislators that have moved into Congress. I can't remember what the percentage of, but it's pretty high. And again, we mentioned this before, but those community leaders, those business leaders, people that have made decisions before, people that have a track record of being a good leader, I think is really important. Again, you're going to be put to the test as a leader in a way that you probably have never been tested before. And if there is, some sort of a proving ground before that, I think that's really critical. So,
building that bench is so critically important.
Yep.
Oh, yes, we've got a question up front.
Yeah. Some of these candidates, they need encouragement. Pictures worth 1,000 words. I give them buttons, but they don't always wear the buttons. They just assume everyone knows them. Even if you're in the Republican area, if they wear a button, they stand out in the crowd. They need to shake hands with everyone there. Door to door is one thing, but if you're in a crowd, you stand out with hundreds of people. And there's a lot of stuff that costs money. Like ballot media isn't expensive. It's free. And people want to look at both sides. So they should always answer these survey things. You put their picture up as statements there. A lot of times they don't take advantage of easy way to meet people and go out.
It's tough to get your name out there. And one of the things that I think even state legislators don't understand a lot of times, sometimes even members of Congress, they actually don't have that high of name ID in most places. They're not as well known as they may think they are or they want to be. So it's a great point of needing to get out in the public, needing to get out and show your face. We've got some Senate races this year, U.S. Senate races this year that should not be races, and they're racist because they didn't get back to their state. They didn't get back to those crowds. They weren't accessible to the people who are their bosses. Sometimes they forget their boss isn't John Thune, it's the voters.
Yeah. And as a total aside, I will be connecting with you after this because I think we need Jeff Glendening buttons.
Oh my gosh, no.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
No.
Here's a couple buttons for you.
Oh, that's so sweet. Thank you. I love this.
You and your partner.
Thank you
and your
so
friend.
much.
There's two of them. You got it.
It has my face on it. Jeff. That is so sweet.
Aw.
Thank you. Oh my gosh.
All the speakers I could find.
That is
Nobody's ever
so
put a button with
awesome.
my face on there. There are faces to run and there are faces not to run.
Oh, this is great. I'm going to make my husband wear this everywhere he goes. Any other questions?
Because my wife complains that I only want to talk politics. She says they don't want to talk politics. But when you wear the hat with their buttons, people come up to you and say, oh, you're
That's
not
true.
afraid to go out and Republican.
We've got a question back there.
Yes. Hi, Karen. Good.
Okay, so my question is sort of specific to our district. Okay, we're in District 42 in outside Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and our area was a Republican stronghold for many, many years. And one by one, they just started coming in. The crazies moved in, and it became 0 and 9. So we are 0 and 9 on the school board, 0 and 9 on our commissioner's race. We have no Republicans represented, no conservatives at all. I mean, and no, they do not align with many of our beliefs that are the Republican conservatives in that level. So my question is, we've got a lot of Democrats that run around and say, oh, we are moderates, and this, and that. And they get into office and they immediately make left turns and become crazies and push through all of their crazy agendas. So what stops us from running a conservative Republican as a Democrat and getting everyone's support behind that moderate Democrat that's really a wolf in sheep's clothing?
This is
Go
a
in and just tear through everybody. I mean,
This is a really fascinating question. And so the question was, what is stopping us from running conservative candidates in progressive seats? And I don't believe AFP has ever done this in Pennsylvania, but has this happened in other states to your knowledge?
No, I completely understand. It's frustrating. It's frustrating when you lose an area, and it happens. It happens all too often. I think one of the biggest things for us, we always want to be honest with voters. You're looking at, actually, Virginia is a great example right now. You got Abigail Spanberger, just elected governor. She was exactly what you're saying. She came across as this moderate Democrat. Oh, she's not going to be crazy. What did she do when she got in there? When she got in and became governor, she has gone left, not just left, she has gone hard left on absolutely everything. And it's been really discouraging to watch. But at some point, the voters are going to be like, yeah, I don't like that. That's not what, who she campaigned on. Always want to be honest about who we are, who our candidates are. That doesn't mean they can't run as a Democrat. Oh, okay. I mean, just don't lie about what you believe. And I know that's not what you're implying at all. But
I'll do whatever it takes to get back.
well,
Yes.
Why we're gonna lie? Okay, I'm just putting it out there.
But I love this passion, and this is why Americans for Prosperity is grassroots driven, because it's us in this room that can create a better policy majority in the House, save our policy majority in the Senate, get good conservative policies done. And I want to end on this. Where there's seats that the progressive agenda is just very prevalent, we are a full-time accountability shop. So we've got a great taxpayer scorecard, pataxpayerscorecard.com, pataxpayerscorecard.com. Check that out. Anything on that website is free for you to share anywhere you'd love. And this is where we can hold members accountable to we the people, and make sure that they are putting taxpayer-friendly policies at the forefront of their activity in Harrisburg. Yep. And I know we are at time. I want to thank you all so much. Thank you, Jeff Glendening, for joining us here in the Commonwealth.
You bet. My pleasure.
And for Americans for Prosperity, Concerned Veterans, and the Libre Initiative, will you just raise your hand? Get to know these folks. We want to be helpful in assisting with recruiting good candidates. So together, we can make a better Commonwealth. Thank you all so much. Appreciate it. And thank you for the button.